Welcome to Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Hey, this week I was just thinking through these verses we're going through here in Luke chapter 3 and just, that lineage that we're talking about. And it made me think of history. Indianapolis Motor Speedway is bathing in history. You cannot walk in this place without feeling the history, the legacy, if you will. I mean, I'm standing right here by this yard of bricks on the ground here, right? That's part of the history. This track used to be paved in brick. It isn't anymore, but everybody goes back to that. That pagoda behind me is built in that style because there was a pagoda that came before it. Every single thing here about Indy depends on something that came before. Think about the Borg Warner. All those faces on the Borg Warner trophy have a story. And a lot of people define themselves by their history. And this list is no different that we see here in Luke chapter 3. It's a bunch of people that throughout history have had someone come before them, and that list starts with Adam, who is the Son of God. And when we think of Adam, what do we think of? He's the guy that dropped the ball. He's the guy that messed it up. He's the guy that started the legacy of sin in our lives. I mean, one thing that comes to my mind when we think of things that come before us and how it affects us, and maybe it's that monkey on our back, is something here right at Indy. It's called the Andretti curse, right? There is no Andretti curse. But yet, we like to think of a reason of why things happen in our life, and often we blame that on things that came before us in life, things we had no control over. And a lot of times, we identify ourselves with our family legacy, different problems in our life. You know, we might say alcoholism, family abuse, all the workaholism, all this stuff that we like to blame on our lineage. And the thing I want to impress today about this lineage we're going over, all this legacy, is that it can end with you. Jason kind of talked about that last week, about how going forward, what is your legacy going to be? This week, I want to look back at your legacy. In this legacy in Luke 3, we see a number of people that we could look at and say, wow, look at that person. They did great. You know, I think of names like Abraham and Noah, right? They're known for the things that they did in obedience to God, but they also are part of that sin legacy that all of us are part of. And what can we do to break that legacy? And the answer's simple, right? We know it. Nothing. We can't do anything on our own to break that lifelong legacy of ourselves. But what we can do is put our faith or trust in Jesus. So my challenge to you today is simply this. If you're already a Christ follower and have submitted to His Lordship, what's that area in your life where you can look back at your story and you're saying, hey, I'm letting that define me. It's time to give that up to Jesus. It's time to move on, to be adopted into the new family of believers and let that stuff go. We all like to buy back in to our history. And if you haven't yet made that step to accept Jesus in your life, I just want to, as always, invite you to do that. It is a journey. It's not a one and done kind of thing. I mean, we just celebrated Easter, and that's all about beginnings and baptism, and thousands of people around the country, I'm sure, got baptized. But now, it's a week later. What are we doing? We need to be into our faith and giving it up to Jesus every day and not let that history define us. History is important, but sometimes we just have to give it up to God. We'll catch you next week on Wednesday Wisdom.